Hi, everyone. I'm Dan Jones. Welcome to Interchange. Thank you so very much for joining us. It has certainly been an interesting week in the world of politics. Will the fact that so many Democrats are at least expressing an interest in running against Governor Scott Walker in a recall election, is that a good thing for their cause, or could it be a bad thing? On the eve of the South Carolina presidential primary, which was supposed to be the one where Romney was christened the likely nominee for the Republicans, things look less settled than anyone ever imagined they would be. And here in Milwaukee, the Potawatomi tribe announces it's going to build a big new hotel right next to their casino. Will that help Milwaukee, or does it simply help the casino? And that's it. Okay, let me introduce everybody. We have newspaper columnist Joel McNally, Kevin Fischer, longtime broadcaster, political analyst, and oftentimes a fill-in host over on WISN Talk Radio. Denise Callaway, the coordinator of business and community partnerships for the Milwaukee Public School System. And Gerard Randall, education consultant and local job creation expert. Rick Horowitz will be along with commentary at the end of the show. All right, let's talk first about the effort to recall Governor Walker. Those folks got boatloads of statewide and national publicity when they turned in what they say are more than 1 million signatures supporting a recall. The next day, the former Dane County executive, Kathleen Falk, and the darling of many Madison liberals, says she's going to run against Walker. Does this make her the early favorite or just one of many who are going to line up?
Well, I still think there's an effort underfoot to convince Mayor Barrett that he should run and be the candidate. The one thing that I would imagine the Democrats don't want to have is a primary that uses up resources. It also splinters their message and gives the Walker team the opportunity to focus on the flaws of the personalities that will likely be their opponents. So I can't imagine that Falk will be the only one, but I do think that they'll have at least two, and the other candidate is more than likely going to be Tom Barrett. Now, that being said, there are rare occasions when I agree with Graham Zielinski. This is one occasion where I do agree with him. I think that they ought to just have the whole shebang now. They have enough signatures. I don't think that any contesting of the signatures that were submitted is going to yield enough signatures to knock the whole thing out. And so it would be in the best interest of the state, and I think in the best interest of both campaigns, the Walker campaign and whoever runs against him, to just have it now and be done with it.
Denise, former Congressman Obey said today to his fellow Democrats, hey, people, you better be careful because everybody thinks this is a given. Whoever's going to run against Walker is automatically going to win. He said that is not the case. If we do win, it's going to be razor thin, so you better get behind the right person right away.
I think that's very true, and I agree with Gerard. You know, the problem with a primary for the Democrats is that it eats up precious resources, and you know they're going to beat each other up a little bit. Kind of what we're seeing now with the Republicans on a national scale. I don't think, excuse me, that it helps the Democrats to be able to have 1,000 candidates who are going to run in this primary, because it's just going to really work to splinter the vote, just take away precious resources, and to really expose potential flaws. Right now, I understand that the governor has spent already over $5 million in advertising. That's money that he can continue to, as he has been doing, fundraise and hold on to for the general election. I think that not probably the way we want to see democracy happen, but I think the Democrats need to decide amongst themselves who really stands the best chance of beating the governor, because it is going to be a very, very close race. There's a lot of focus on what is remarkable, not just that there were enough individuals, Democrat, Republican, and independents in the state, who signed those recall petitions, over 1 million. That is remarkable. But we also have to remember, if we take a look at that last election, that more than 1 million people voted for Governor Walker and more than 1 million people voted for Tom Barrett. It's not a slam dunk to say we have 1 million signatures, whoever we put up is going to win. The Democrats need to be very careful through this process, save their money, save their resources, and don't paint targets on the back of whoever the eventual candidate is going to be through a primary that would certainly be, I think, a very heated primary.
Kevin, Obey has said in the past that he's a huge Tom Barrett fan. He wants Tom Barrett to run. Is this simply a message to the unions, you better get behind Barrett?
It might be a veiled message that okay, Kathleen Falk is in, that doesn't mean that she's the darling of all Democrats. I believe that the unions will pick who's ever going to run. They have their person now, and I think behind the scenes, they're going to try to squelch the hopes and dreams of any other Democrats who may want to run. They don't like Tom Barrett. Remember, Tom Barrett supported even a more stringent collective bargaining reform than Governor Walker did. And so he is
More
not
stringent than destroying collective bargaining? No, he didn't.
well. He wanted police and fire in there, and because of that, the union bosses in Madison didn't send him any Christmas cards this year. The other Democrats are sort of B level. I don't think a Peter Barca or a John Erpenbach throws any scare into the Walker people like a Russ Feingold or a Herb Kohl would have. Kathleen Falk comes in with some baggage, and we talk about the recall signatures, 1 million signatures. I don't know that they have 1 million signatures. What the group that collected them says they have. They claim they have 1 million, and the media just laps it up. Oh wow, 1 million signatures. We don't know how many of those are valid. I disagree with you that the other side should just lay down and say, okay, let's just go right to the election. You have conservative Republicans all across the state of Wisconsin for the past 60 days who have been sitting back and watching this and have been chomping at the bit, waiting for their chance now to do due diligence and exercise their right now, their electoral right, and challenge those signatures when we know not all of them are valid. You had a record turnout in the summer recall elections of the 9 state senators last year. I want to point out this number. 7 of those 9 elections, the challenger had more votes than signatures turned in. And yet those 7 challengers all lost. So I think Congressman Obie is correct that there should not be these popping of champagne corks just because you were able to unload boxes and boxes and boxes of signatures. The governor is going to be tough to beat.
If the election were held today, could Kathleen Falk beat Walker?
I think if the election were here today, anybody could beat Walker. That's what those 1 million signatures say.
See, now isn't Obie saying no, that's not true?
Well, Obie, I think for good reason. You're right. He's been pushing Barrett for some time. And if Barrett doesn't get in, I personally expect Obie to get in. I don't think there are going to be all these candidates fighting it out in the primary. I think a lot of people are floating trial balloons right now, and I think it will become obvious who the candidate is pretty soon. But you didn't mention the fact that on this show I predicted 1 million signatures, did you? You could have brought that up.
You are brilliant.
You could have brought that up if you want. But the interesting thing going on this side of the room is that Gerard has the new Republican talking point, and Kevin has the old Republican talking point. Scott Walker himself said, let's quit the delays, let's have the election as quick as possible. This is after the whole Republican strategy has been delay, delay, delay. And the idea that, boy, we don't know if they can even come up with 500,000 signatures. And then we don't know if they can come up with 720,000 signatures like they say they're going to, and it'll be a failure if they don't. And then they turned in 1 million. And suddenly people are starting to, they've stopped talking about what right-wing radio was talking about for weeks, which was all these fraudulent signatures, Mickey Mouse and somebody signing 80 times. And the people collecting these signatures had no interest in turning in 80 duplicate signatures to get thrown out or turning in Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck to get thrown out. They were confirming signatures. Everyone who went out...
They only began the confirmation process after it became very clear through the judge's order that the Government Accountability Board was going to have to check.
In the very beginning,
it was right and fair to question those signatures.
No. They did it.
I'm not wrong on that.
As talk radio is, about fraud. We
They
talked
did it from the beginning
for weeks, and it didn't happen. An enormous outpouring across this state, small towns, across Wisconsin, 1 million people.
If the signatures are all good, then let's see that they're all good.
Yeah,
Prove it.
But you got to get on the Republican team here, and Kevin, and figure out that they want to have it quick.
If anybody's on the Republican team, it's yours truly, my friend.
No, you don't give them any credit a lot of the time.
All right, next topic. What an interesting week it has been in presidential politics. It's announced that Santorum, not Romney as originally thought, got more votes in Iowa. And one-time favorite, Rick Perry, well, he drops out. Gingrich surges in the polls and then gets hit by an accusation from an ex-wife that he's a weirdo who wanted an open marriage. So Saturday's South Carolina primary, Denise, could be kind of interesting. What do you think?
I think it's going to be a little interesting. And, it's not just the fact that Gingrich is surging, which he is. It continues to be this misstep that Romney makes when it comes to talking about wealth. And whether or not, you're going to bet, one of your fellow candidates, I'll bet you $10,000. Well, most people in South Carolina don't have $10,000 they could bet. Where he talks about the fact that his speaking fees, they didn't amount to much, when it was $379,000. A lot of people are going to think that that's more than something you just kind of, shove off as saying that it really isn't that important. It's as much the missteps that Romney is making around this issue as anything else. And I think that the other thing that, quite frankly, has happened is you're kind of seeing, and I think this is a good thing at the end of the day for Democrats, you're seeing the Newt Gingrich of old. Caustic, bombastic, dropping, dropping nasty stuff on other Republicans. I thought there was an 11th commandment. The Republicans don't speak ill of other Republicans. And he is, that's probably just one of the commandments he's violated, but he has violated that particular one, certainly.
Which I mentioned last week, my angst about the Republicans fighting against each other. It needs to stop.
I'm not going to complain about. It's going to be really interesting. I think it's going to be questionable whether or not Santorum stays in after South Carolina. I think what you're going to see is it's going to be, I think Gingrich has a good chance of pulling the upset. Momentum is on his side. And then it's going to be, all holes barred when it comes to Florida.
Why doesn't Romney just be honest and say, I'm a gazillionaire, everybody knows I'm a gazillionaire, I'm worth, $200 million? Why doesn't he just say it?
Everyone knows it. And it's to his advantage right now with regards to fundraising. I don't know that his communications, it's to his advantage, his connections as someone of wealth to have for fundraising. He has those connections. People give him money because he's in that network. The sad part is his communications team really has not addressed with him, the disconnect to the average voter. And that's going to be problematic for him down the line. I had always thought that in the South, and this is where I think that the South Carolina primary is going to be a real test, can he connect to evangelicals? His Mormon faith is something that stirs a lot of passion from folk who simply don't accept it. And there are a lot of Christians that have questions about it, and as a result, they have questions about him. So it's going to be a test on Saturday to see if he can pull evangelicals in, because all across the South, he's going to have to convince them in states like Georgia or Mississippi or Alabama that he can lead them.
But if you're an evangelical, you're not going to vote for Gingrich, right?
I don't know. Some of them apparently are in South Carolina, despite all the stuff that's come out this week. I love how bad all these candidates are. And it is quite clear that the Republicans don't like their own front-running candidate, Mitt Romney. That's why they have turned to every single other candidate, and until that particular candidate made a total fool of himself or herself, they were pinning their hopes, maybe this one can beat Romney, or maybe this one can beat Romney. Now I think they're pretty much all out of it, except Romney. And then so here they are presenting a candidate in the worst economic times in America since the Great Depression, who is the top 0.1% of the top 1%, who only pays 15% in his taxes, and that's on the money that he doesn't have hidden in the Cayman Islands, the millions of dollars. So, he is like an advertisement for how the Republican Party is out of touch with real working people. He's an empty suit. He looks like a shirt ad. He looks like a president. But every time he opens his mouth, he says something insulting to ordinary people. $375,000, that's not much money. And I'll bet someone $10,000. And I know what unemployment's like. And I used to worry about pink slips too. Just nonsense. He is totally tone deaf. And this is the guy they're going to have to go with. And Gerard is right. The evangelicals, because of religious bigotry, the Republican Party has played on bigotry and used it to its advantage anytime it could. And this time it's going to come back and bite them.
But should Romney apologize for being a gazillionaire?
No. What? We'd all like to be gazillionaires. There's nothing wrong with being a gazillionaire.
You don't have to be an arrogant jerk about it.
It's not a crime. It's not a sin. It's okay. Everybody wants to strive for wealth. If they don't, then I'd say there's something wrong with them. The problem with Romney is that he's also trying to sound like he's just an average guy.
Right.
And he doesn't come off very, very convincing. I think he's still the guy, even though last week I said he's not my favorite at all. Only 20% of Republicans regard him as their favorite.
He's the nominee.
But Gingrich surging this week because he hit some grand slams out of the park with his media bashing, and I thought it was fantastic. The way he had Juan Williams for lunch, the way he told off the CNN reporter by asking really a question that amounts to politics of personal destruction that has nothing to do in a presidential debate. And people that maybe weren't for Gingrich, they're sitting at home watching this on TV, and they love the guy. So
I don't know that they love him.
You want to go with that guy?
I don't know that they love him
so much?
I don't know
listen. They love what he said. Okay, they love what he did. They love what he stood up for. So if
There
he
are
wins,
parts
if he
of
wins,
the country where he has a strong
Right,
attraction.
so now he wins South Carolina. He could, and if he does, I think it's a temporary blip. It's a temporary bump that he gets because of the way he won that debate the other night in the first 3 minutes and 10 seconds. But this just prolongs the process. Romney is still the front runner, I believe, and all the early indications from the states that are holding primaries in February, Nebraska, Florida, et al., Romney is clearly in the lead there. So the Gingrich surge this week, I think, wears off.
The problem
And
that
only
Gingrich,
20% of Republicans like him.
right,
That's
but
great.
the other problem Gingrich has is that
no,
he doesn't
20%
have
Republicans think Romney is their number one choice.
Gingrich does not have the system in place and the folks in place in these other states to really make a run. If he's going to survive beyond Florida, he really is going to have to put a system in place where he's got folks, boots on the ground, to be able to really give Romney a run for his money. I think that Gingrich, his main problem is, quite frankly, Newt's main problem is Newt.
It's personal baggage. He has it, and the press won't let America forget about it.
But it's not the press. I mean, his wife came forward and talked about the fact that he wanted an open marriage. You know what? I wasn't there. He was there and she was there. I'm not going to call her a liar because she really felt that's what was said. If
Denise,
you go back and listen to it,
you're an
that's what
accomplished
she felt.
journalist. I got to tell you, you should know that a disgruntled ex from years back,
picked her moment.
that's not news, and especially at a time in America when half the country is divorced.
That does not make the situation right when you have someone who has built his reputation talking about family values, when in fact, if you look at Newt Gingrich, the way he must value families is by having more of them. That's his definition
And
of family
every time
values.
a wife gets sick, he kicks her out. And
Well, apparently, when a president has his pants down by his
he's not
ankles
running.
in the Oval Room, that's okay because it's a Democrat. But if you're a Republican, you can't get a divorce.
This about Obama.
At the same time, this is what's hypocritical about this situation. At the very same time that Gingrich was saying that the president was wrong for having an affair What was Newt doing in his matrimonial bed without his wife? Having an affair with another woman.
You
And
weren't
calling
there,
her on the phone.
but you sure talk like you were
All
there.
right.
He admits it. He admits it.
Next topic. The
Get his own
Potawatomi
word.
tribe here in Milwaukee announced this week it's going to build a big new hotel connected to their Menominee Valley Casino. For years and years, we've all heard the convention people complain that Milwaukee needs more hotel rooms, a lot of them, if it's ever going to compete with other cities for even medium-sized conventions. Does something like this help all of us, or is it simply something that helps the Potawatomi and that casino, and that's it?
It's phenomenal. But I think it does one thing that we as a community are probably going to have to begin to accept. If you look at the Menominee Valley, going back to State Fair Park, where you have convention facilities, and you move down to Miller Park, you go down to the Potawatomi Center, and then down Summerfest at the very end of Menominee Valley, what you have is the new downtown for Milwaukee. And I think you're going to, well, certainly the new entertainment center for Milwaukee. And what you're going to see is more rapid development occur down in that valley that's entertainment focused. I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if you see, for example, some type of GameStop or some attraction that will bring families that's focused around that type of entertainment. Maybe even a movie theater that will go down in the valley, who knows. But you're going to see that as the new focal point for entertainment in this community. And downtown is going to have to redefine itself in many, many other ways because it won't be, it won't be that target.
Those hotel guests at the Potawatomi are not going to go to Wisconsin Avenue. They're going to stay right at
that area,
at the casino in that area. But it is phenomenal. You've got the Marriott Hotel going up, a 9-story hotel on Wisconsin Avenue and Milwaukee, which is going to create over 1,200 direct and indirect jobs. I suspect the same economic benefit from this new hotel. So it's really good news for the local economy.
Do we need a few more really big hotels downtown?
If we're going to compete, we do need additional hotel space. I mean, that's the only way it's going to happen. When we take a look at there are actually surveys that Visit Milwaukee has done, where they've asked people who've considered Milwaukee as a destination for a convention why they didn't select Milwaukee.
The B conventions will come here, but not the A.
Not the A conventions. And the reason that they say they're not here, they love the amenities, they love Frontier Airlines Center, they love the fact that there are downtown restaurants in Water Street. It's the hotel space. So, this can be incredibly helpful, but we've got to see more development or we're still not going to be top tier.
Okay, back to the recall campaign against Scott Walker and the others for just a minute now. Now, collecting and turning in that many signatures was pretty extraordinary, but for writing consultant and commentator Rick Horowitz, what happened after they were turned in was equally amazing. Rick.
Could be in there. Could be somewhere else. Those petitions. Nobody's saying where they are. Oh, they're in Madison somewhere. They've said that. Or is that just what they want you to think? 1.5 tons of recall petitions, nearly 2 million signatures in all, according to the organizers. And they're being stored and scanned and reviewed in some government building in a secret location under police guard. You know what's strange about that? What's strange about that is almost nobody seems to think that's strange. I mean, you're smack in the middle of a democratic process, small d democratic process. Recalls are right there in the state constitution, a perfectly legal procedure, whether or not you think it's warranted in this particular case. And yet somebody decided that these recall petitions needed to go into the witness protection program. And everybody else sort of shrugs and says, well, that makes sense. Think about that for a minute. Why does it make sense? Are they worried about the security of the petitions? Are they worried about the safety of the people reviewing them? About angry crowds pounding on the walls, storming through the doors? And are they right to be worried? Is that what it's come to? That those kinds of concerns are realistic concerns? That you can't have a high-stakes election nowadays without calling out the police? You'd expect to find that kind of stuff in some banana republic, not in the United States. Oh, maybe in Florida during the Battle of the Hanging Chads. But certainly not in Wisconsin, clean and pure, honest and civil Wisconsin. Not anymore. Welcome to the Bratwurst Republic. Now, I realize that one man's mob is another man's First Amendment in full flower. That what you might think of as letting our voices be heard, I might consider intimidation, plain and simple. or vice versa. But what does it say about the state of Wisconsin, about the state of politics generally, that we've fallen so far and that it's become the new normal? Secret locations? Well, sure. Police protection? Well, sure. What does it say? Nothing good.
Well, thanks, Rick, and thank you so very much for watching. Stay warm, stay dry, stay out of the snow, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.